Om Shanti. Yoga is a grace system, and I want to talk about that today. I want to unpack that for us today. What does that mean? The yoga I practice is a grace system. Bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion to the divine, devotion to love. What does grace mean? How do we recognize grace in our lives, the presence of grace? And then how do we cultivate it? Is it able to be cultivated? Can we experience more grace? I've had a lot of close calls in my life, and maybe you have too. And some of them have been epic, life-threatening, really, honestly. And the last time that happened to me, several years ago, I remember this incredible sense of relief when I came out okay, when the worst thing did not happen. I also felt bewildered by my smallness and by my powerlessness. I was powerless against this force that came in to take my life away. And then I was saved somehow. Mostly, I felt a sense of gratitude, a swelling in my heart so big that it filled my entire body, and a sense of relief and gratitude that I fell to my knees. I fell to my knees. Think of all the times in your life you felt a swell of gratitude, sort of unbidden or unexpected, so big that the worst did not happen, that you averted some disaster. Those times you felt that your life was not in your control and that a greater presence intervened. Perhaps you were aware of this greater presence at the time. Perhaps you only recognized it in the end upon reflection. Each of these moments may be evidence of the presence of grace in our lives. Every human being can experience grace. Everyone. You don't have to be kind to have experienced grace. And you don't have to have proved yourself to experience grace, because grace is the result of unconditional love, and unconditional means no matter what. Gratitude does not gratitude, but grace does not make me special. It makes me humble. That last time that happened to me, when I was on my knees, I remember I was crying with relief, but I was also crying because I felt I am not alone here. I am not alone inside this body. I am not alone inside this mind. I have a friend. I have an invisible friend. There is a power that wishes the best for me. So grace is the evidence of this special relationship, one based on unconditional love. And I'll be using the word God here today because I'll be talking about the Bhagavad Gita, which is the original text on grace in the Hindu scriptures. The Bhagavad Gita introduced this idea of grace as a pathway to freedom from suffering. But you could use any other words that you'd like. You could substitute supreme consciousness for God. You could substitute a universal harmonic being. You could substitute life itself or consciousness itself. So how do we know we're in a state of grace? It's accompanied by a feeling: relief, gratitude, wonder. And I want to talk about wonder because sometimes grace happens in moments of unmitigated beauty. This morning I was out walking around in my snowy yard. You can see behind me the snow, the blue sky, and it's a sunny day. And I looked down at the snow and suddenly all these jewels were twinkling back at me. there were thousands and thousands of shards of light reflecting the sun. And I stopped in wonder, and my breath stopped. And this is another way we human beings may know that we're in a state of grace. The breath stops. The flow of the life force pauses for a moment as if to extend the moment. All right, so my breath stops, my words stop flowing. If I'm in motion, I pause. Time seems to stop. And I would call this a moment of grace. So grace doesn't have to come in times only of emergency. It's there to be found if we're looking for it, if we understand it, if we have reflected on it in our own lives before. Another time when I feel grace is when I feel forgiven by someone. I am just, when someone forgives me, I understand that they are coming from a place, a higher place generally than where I am in that moment. And at the same time, I have been given the gift of the ability to forgive someone else when I thought I never could. Forgiveness itself seems to me an act of grace. And in that way, it can completely amaze us because it seems to come out of nowhere, right? I might have held a grudge towards someone for years. And then suddenly one day I wake up and it's just not there anymore. That burden I've been carrying seems gone. And something has shifted inside me that allows me to forgive. Again, I'm not alone. There is a greater presence moving through me and working with me in this lifetime. So how might we cultivate more grace in our lives? First of all, becoming aware of it and looking for moments of it, because I'm pretty sure that I have passed by 100,000 moments of grace in my life and not been available to them. I was preoccupied in one of my 4 lower bodies energetically, or in my mind, or maybe I was preoccupied with pain in my body, or I was preoccupied with an emotion, and I was unable to receive the gift of grace. So once you know it's there, you can start looking for it. We can practice our way into grace as well. And I want to point you to later in this week, I'll be offering 2 practices that will make us more amenable to grace, that have at least allowed me to be more amenable to grace in my life, and that open up to the divine consciousness, right? Consciousness itself. Bhakti yoga, finally, the Bhagavad Gita here. Bhakti yoga, as it's given to us in the Bhagavad Gita, the song of the Lord, or more accurately, that which was sung by the Lord, is taught in the Gita. It's a story, if you haven't read it before, or if it's been a while. The Gita is a conversation, for the most part, between Arjuna, a warrior prince, who has lost his nerve, and he's lost his internal GPS, and he's lost his confidence on the eve of war. And he takes his charioteer named Krishna out onto the battlefield with him, in the center of the battlefield, and throws down his bow and arrow and says, "What are we doing? I'm lost. Help me, Krishna." Krishna is much like a golf caddy to a golfer, right? He is his comrade in arms. He's his advisor. He's Arjuna's advisor. What Arjuna does not know is that Krishna is only disguised as a charioteer. He is God himself. And that lesson is for a whole other talk. But as they have this conversation on the battlefield, it's a stop time moment, right? Because battles don't really wait for anybody. But in this conceit of the construction of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna are out there on the battlefield having a discussion, having this philosophical discussion, and Arjuna is being trained in the art of yoga. And one of the paths to yoga, the supreme path, says Krishna, is devotion to the divine. Consider this passage. Never was there a time when I was not I, and you were not you, nor will there ever be a time when I am not I, and you were not you. Of this there can be no doubt. This is from chapter 2 of the Gita. And Krishna says this to Arjuna to teach him about the eternal soul. Never was there a time when I was not I. But he's not only teaching him about the eternal soul within each human being, he's also teaching him about the relational aspect of each human being to God. Never was there a time when I was not I, and you were not you. Do you see that he's putting them together? Krishna is putting himself, allying himself and aligning himself with Arjuna. It is a dance. It is a relationship that is eternal. I find these words really reassuring. What Krishna is saying to Arjuna, as I read it, is namaste. Namas means to name, to call, right? To call out, namas. It also means to bow before. And it is something that we say in veneration. I say namaste to my yoga students, and what I'm saying is that we are now operating on the plane of the soul. I'm not going to teach you how to bake bread, right? This is some other kind of lesson here. Never was there a time when I was not I. And another passage that I want to point out today is from chapter 11. Krishna reveals himself to Arjuna as God in all of his terror, his majesty, his frightening aspect, his loving aspect. He is all the suns that ever were. He is all the planets. He is all the stars. He's all the volcanoes that ever ate up everything on earth. He's all the lovers. He's all the haters. He's everything. And Arjuna says, please, no, I can't take it anymore. I want my Krishna back. The question that comes after this is, why me? Why does Krishna reveal himself? Why does God reveal himself to Arjuna? And Krishna's answer is, because you love me. So, love then for the divine, for a higher consciousness, for a higher vision, for unconditional love itself, moving through everyone. Love then is the way into this revelation, a way into a life of grace. If this talk has served you at all, please subscribe to the Grace School of Yoga YouTube channel and look for the 2 practices I'll be posting later this week. And you can try them out for yourselves and see what happens. With love in my heart for this journey we are all on together. Namaste.